Chapter 1091, A Bigger Danger. The power that's disappeared has gone underground. Zhao Feng's eyes saw through everything. The power that had gone underground was moving through the crystal walls and heading in the direction behind Zhao Feng. That direction seemed to be the head of the god corpse. This is too weird. Zhao Feng's eyebrows furrowed together. After the vines inside the giant crystal recovered, all the energy disappeared, including all the treasures inside the crystals. What was taking away all this power? Zhao Feng couldn't imagine what would happen after all this power gathered together. The ore outside the crystal is also slowly disappearing. Someone said, and everyone's gaze instantly turned away from the crystal and started to inspect their surroundings. The divine aura and the heaven-earth yuan qi in the air around the crystal was indeed fading away. At the same time, the quality of the herbs and treasure sealed within the crystals was also decreasing. Could it be that all the power inside the god corpse is slowly disappearing? This question surfaced in everyone's mind. We need to take action quickly and find some treasures before all the fortune in the god corpse disappears. A human sacred lord immediately said. This sacred lord then led his group and left. The speed at which the power disappeared was different in different places. For example, the power of everything within the large crystal was fading away very quickly, but the speed at which the energy outside the crystal disappeared was very slow. Some places might not have changed at all yet. The two demigods in the sky had grim expressions. What happened? Demigod Withered Breath murmured. He believed that, with the terrifying power fading away, something would soon happen. Whoosh! Demigod Arcane Void was the first of the two to leave. After all, he already tried stopping Demigod Withered Breath inside the crystal dimension. Now that there was no fortune remaining, if Demigod Withered Breath teamed up with the other human experts present, it would cause a lot of trouble for him. Demigod Arcane Void led some non-humans and flew in a certain direction. He could obviously sense that this was the way the power was flowing. With Demigod Arcane Void's departure, more non-humans decided to leave. Sacred King Roaring Sky stood there and hesitated for a while. He really wanted to kill Zhao Feng, but the human demigod was still present, so he didn't dare to do anything and could only leave in anger. Zhao Feng, let's go as well. Nan Gongsheng persuaded. He had obtained a black fruit inside and was considered relatively lucky in comparison to the others. Humph, where do you think you're going? Sacred King Feather Spirit's cold harumph sounded from behind Zhao Feng and company. Hand over everything that you obtained. Sacred King Greenlight had a grim expression. From their point of view, if it wasn't because of Zhao Feng being present, they wouldn't have charged up to him, and they might have been able to find some treasures. Now that the giant crystal had been destroyed, they obviously wouldn't let Zhao Feng just leave. Some of the sacred lords and sacred kings nearby that saw this immediately left. What did Zhao Feng do to offend the Grand Imperial Hall? That's 3 sacred kings and 4 sacred lords. Some sacred lords and sacred kings were surprised. With the composition of Sacred King Feather Spirit's group, even the group from Sky Suspension Palace didn't dare to offend them unless Demigod Withered Breath came with them. Brother Feng, what should we do? Zhao Yufei was slightly impatient. Although her mystic light's sacred power and intent had increased, she hadn't fully consolidated it yet and had no chances of winning. Zhao Feng, let's settle the feud between us. Sacred King Earth Ghost also stood forward. He was extremely frustrated at not obtaining the fruit. If it wasn't because Zhao Feng had offended the Grand Imperial Hall members, forcing Sacred King Earth Ghost to stop the process of obtaining the fruit, he might have obtained it. If the 3 sacred kings from the Grand Imperial Hall wanted to kill Zhao Feng, Sacred King Earth Ghost didn't need to be scared of joining in as well. If Zhao Feng used his replica God-slaying arrow, it wouldn't be as much of a problem for them. Even if Zhao Feng had a real God-slaying arrow, he wouldn't be able to unleash its full power. With the combined force of 4 sacred kings and a bunch of sacred lords, they should be able to block it. Furthermore, Sacred King Earth Ghost also had a group with him that included several sacred lords from the Earth Demon cult. Sacred King Earth Ghost? Sacred King Feather Spirit paused for a moment. Sacred King Earth Ghost was on Zhao Feng's side inside the giant crystal, but now he was switching sides? I was just momentarily working with this brat. Now that we've come out, our cooperation has obviously come to an end. Sacred King Earth Ghost revealed a wicked and evil smile, and the 3 sacred kings from the Grand Imperial Hall nodded their heads. From their point of view, Zhao Feng would be unable to escape even if he grew wings, so an extra Sacred King Earth Ghost wouldn't do too much either way. Even the Earth Demon cult is involved. I heard that Zhao Feng had a feud with the Earth Demon cult when he was chasing after Sacred Lord Demonic Abyss. Some of the human Sacred Lords discussed as they prepared to watch the show. Grand Elder Demigod Weathered Breath glanced at Zhao Feng, then led the experts of Sky Suspension Palace and left. They went in the direction where the power within the God Corpse was gathering. Although Demigod Withered Breath felt that something was off, he had to give it a look. No one can save you now. Sacred King Feather Spirit laughed and said after seeing the Sky Suspension Palace group leave. At this moment, Zhao Feng and company were facing 4 Sacred King experts and several Sacred Lords. This combination was enough to destroy a 3-star superpower in the continent zone relatively easily. Nan Gongsheng's expression changed for the first time. Although they would be at a disadvantage against 3 Sacred Kings, they would still be able to fight back if they took out all their hidden cards. However, they were now facing 4 Sacred Kings and a bunch of Sacred Lords. Even Nan Gongsheng didn't feel there was much hope, but he still instinctively looked at Zhao Feng, and he saw a calm expression. Nan Gongsheng's expression shook. How could Zhao Feng act so calmly in such a dire situation as if nothing had happened? What else did he have up his sleeves? Humph, he's just pretending to be calm. Sacred King Feather Spirit looked at Zhao Feng and mocked. Wang tilde who? The 4 Sacred Kings instantly released a strong surge of intent that merged into the air and locked onto Zhao Feng and company. This stopped Zhao Feng and company from using the misty spatial world to escape. Zhao Feng spoke right as the 4 Sacred Kings were about to take action. My helper is here. Zhao Feng revealed a faint smile. Helper? Sacred King Feather Spirit's expression froze. Zhao Feng had a helper? Humph, who would be able to save you at this moment? Sacred King Greenlight mocked. There were 3 Sacred Kings from the Grand Imperial Hall and the Grand Elder of the Earth Demon cult present. Apart from Sky Suspension Palace or a demigod expert, no one in the continent zone would be able to save Zhao Feng right now, and according to what they knew, Zhao Feng had no relationship with Sky Suspension Palace or any demigods. Who? A golden figure flew out from a certain pathway at this instant. Kun Yun. Sacred King Feather Spirit immediately exclaimed, and the expressions of the other 3 Sacred Kings froze. They had obviously heard of Kun Yun before. Apparently, he was the demigod Kun Yun revived. I didn't expect Zhao Feng to have connections with Kun Yun. Kun Yun isn't simple. Some of the spectating Sacred Lords nearby were also stunned. Kun Yun used to be a demigod, and even the Grand Imperial Hall wouldn't want to offend a demigod for no reason, let alone 3 Sacred Kings that couldn't represent the entire Grand Imperial Hall. It's him? Nan Gongsheng also froze. He finally understood why Zhao Feng was so calm. From the looks of it, Zhao Feng had already messaged Kun Yun long ago. At this point in time, Kun Yun was now a Sacred King, but in terms of true strength, he was probably the strongest Sacred King in the Lord Dynasty. If Kun Yun joined their group, they wouldn't need to be scared of the enemies ahead. Zhao Yufei also let out a breath. You're finally here. Zhao Feng looked at Kun Yun. Zhao Feng had sensed that Kun Yun was nearby as soon as they came out of the crystal dimension after using the token. That was why Zhao Feng wasn't in a rush to leave. All of you can fuck off. I'll see who dares to harm him. Kun Yun flew over and instantly released a powerful physical force. The intents of the 4 Sacred Kings were instantly dispersed. Senior Kun Yun, I am an elder of the Grand Imperial Hall. Zhao Feng blackmailed the Grand Imperial Hall and killed the 13th prince. Sacred King Feather Spirit revealed a respectful expression as he started to explain. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Did you not hear me tell you to fuck off? Kun Yun roared impatiently, and the expressions of the 4 Sacred Kings became ugly. Although Kun Yun was a Sacred King like them, the pressure that Kun Yun was currently putting on them was extremely strong. Zhao Feng paused for a moment. He felt extremely weird as he looked at the impatient Kun Yun. He originally figured that Kun Yun would only help him handle the danger, and yet here he was yelling at a bunch of Sacred Kings from the Grand Imperial Hall and not giving them any face at all for his sake. Just as Zhao Feng was pondering, another figure flew out of the pathway that Kun Yun came from. Boom. A terrifying intent caused heaven and earth to shake, and the hearts of all the experts present dropped as they felt their bloodlines and sacred power become suppressed. A non-human demigod. A Sacred Lord nearby exclaimed. Kun Yun, where do you think you're running to? The non-human demigod roared, causing the heaven-earth Yuan-Chi to shake. His expression suddenly froze for a moment after seeing Zhao Feng next to Kun Yun, then he started to roar with laughter. You must be Zhao Feng. This non-human demigod looked at Zhao Feng with killing intent. Demigod ferocity. Zhao Feng's eyes bulged out as he swallowed his spit. He finally understood why Kun Yun was acting so impatiently. A demigod was chasing after him. However, what really frustrated Zhao Feng was that the demigod chasing after Kun Yun was demigod ferocity. If Zhao Feng had known this was the case, he would have just run away with Nan Gongsheng and Zhao Yufei after exiting the crystal. Now, the danger in front of them was even worse. Chapter 1092, Pursuit of a Demigod. You must be Zhao Feng. The non-human demigod looked at Zhao Feng with killing intent, but he didn't make any rash movements because there were many human experts present. He knew the sacred kings from the Grand Imperial Hall as well. If all these human experts teamed up, demigod ferocity wouldn't be able to do anything to Zhao Feng and Kun Yun, and he would have to leave. After all, a demigod was just an extra powerful sacred king. The only difference was that they had touched the domain of divine power, or that their intent had reached the level of a true god. Zhao Feng, you have a feud with demigod ferocity? Kun Yun paused before looking at Zhao Feng. Kun Yun, don't even think about getting any rewards this time. Zhao Feng said in a cold manner. Kun Yun felt extremely helpless. He didn't know this would happen. Although Kun Yun had obtained a lot of fortune within the God Corps, none of it solved his problem of becoming a god, so Kun Yun badly needed the resources that Zhao Feng had. The human sacred lords nearby felt that the situation was becoming bad and started to gather together. Only sacred kings would be able to fight back against this non-human demigod, but luckily, there were several human sacred kings present, and 3 of them were from the Grand Imperial Hall. Therefore, almost all of the human sacred lords started to gather toward the Grand Imperial Hall's group in order to seek protection. The 3 sacred kings and sacred King Earth Ghost in front of Zhao Feng started to think. They could obviously tell that demigod ferocity had a feud with Zhao Feng, but since they were all humans, they should team up and fight against demigod ferocity together. However, if they did that, it would mean helping Zhao Feng. Furthermore, after helping Zhao Feng get rid of the danger, they wouldn't dare to take action against him. Retreat. Sacred King Feather Spirit led the group and started to move away from Zhao Feng. The Grand Imperial Hall has a feud with Zhao Feng. They're planning to give him up. So what? As long as we can survive, everything's okay. That's a non-human demigod. We need to rely on the power of the Grand Imperial Hall. The nearby human sacred lords obviously knew what the sacred kings of the Grand Imperial Hall were thinking. Although they thought that humans should team up at this moment and fight against the non-humans, they didn't dare say that to the sacred kings of the Grand Imperial Hall. The Grand Imperial Hall really knows what's good for them. Demigod Ferocity laughed gruesomely. When he arrived, he could tell that there was a problem between Zhao Feng and the experts of the Grand Imperial Hall. However, from the looks of it, this problem was much bigger than he thought. At the critical moment, the Grand Imperial Hall actually gave up on Zhao Feng and company. You 2 of you can go die. Demigod Ferocity suddenly stepped forward. Boom. Heaven and earth shook as limitless intent started to circulate, and a terrifying wisp of divine power exploded in the air. Demigod Ferocity instantly arrived before Kun Yun and Zhao Feng and released a devastating pressure against them. Bam! Golden light flashed around Kun Yun's body as mysterious golden talismans radiated a terrifying physical power that filled the sky. Zhao Yufei and Nan Gongsheng weren't Demigod Ferocity's match. Although they bore less pressure and aura, they felt like they were in a swamp while being crushed by a mountain. It was extremely hard for them to even breathe. This is a demigod expert. Zhao Feng activated the Blood Devil Sun bloodline and the Sacred Lightning body as he barely managed to speak. Although the trio had made improvements within the crystal dimension, that was only in terms of intent. They still felt infinitely small against the pressure of a demigod. Run. Zhao Feng immediately said. Wang tilde. 2 powers spread from Zhao Feng's back. One was black and chaotic while the other was purple and profound. Zhao Feng used the power of his 2 little world projections in order to fight back against the pressure of this demigod. Zhao Yufei obviously knew that demigod ferocity was only targeting Kun Yun and Zhao Feng, but she wouldn't leave Zhao Feng. Who? Zhao Yufei's body started to burn, and she seemed to turn into a meteor that moved the heaven-earth Yuanqi nearby. Damn it. Nan Gongsheng felt helpless. Although demigod ferocity's targets were only Kun Yun and Zhao Feng, He couldn't separate from Zhao Feng, or else he would have to face the experts from the Grand Imperial Hall alone. Wang tilde. A chaotic purple divine light also surged out from Nan Gongsheng's body. The trio released a total of 4 little world projections. The power was enough to make older Sacred King experts retreat. Boom. Part of Demigod Ferocity's intent was pushed aside by these 4 powerful little worlds, and Kun Yun instantly felt a lot better as he faced Demigod Ferocity at the front. Sky Sealing Palm. Kun Yun activated his physical strength and slowly thrust out several dozen palms. Who? The several dozen golden palms merged into heaven and earth and seemed to completely disappear, but in reality, the power of this palm technique hit Demigod Ferocity's invisible intent and sealed part of its power. At the same time, it also cut off the connection between Demigod Ferocity and his intent. Go. Kun Yun followed Zhao Feng and company and tried to escape using this chance. Humph, none of you should even dare to think about running away this time. Demigod Ferocity was slightly surprised. The combined forces of these 4 actually blocked his intent. However, he was still happy because the other humans hadn't helped Kun Yun or Zhao Feng. This meant that he could kill Kun Yun and Zhao Feng while rescuing Sacred Lord Myriad Forms at the same time. The other Sacred Lords were still dazed after Kun Yun, Zhao Feng, and Demigod Ferocity left. They can actually fight back against a demigod? Someone exclaimed in shock. Indeed, Kun Yun and the 3 Sacred Lords just managed to escape from a demigod. It's just because of Kun Yun. Kun Yun used to be a demigod himself. An early-stage Sacred Lord didn't seem to find it very surprising. Kun Yun played a very important role in their escape. Kun Yun's intent was very strong, but it was still a bit off compared to a demigod. However, although the power of Zhao Feng and company was weak, it allowed Kun Yun to let out a breath and unleash the Sky Sealing Palm. Humph, I don't believe they can survive the pursuit of a demigod. Sacred King Feather Spirit harumphed. He only felt unwilling that Zhao Feng wasn't going to die by his own hands. I'll be leaving now. Sacred King Earth Ghost felt slightly uneasy and parted with the Sacred Kings of the Grand Imperial Hall. He originally thought that, after teaming up with the Grand Imperial Hall, he would definitely be able to kill Zhao Feng, but such a strange accident happened. Although he also thought that Zhao Feng would definitely be killed by the demigod, Sacred King Earth Ghost felt uneasy that he wouldn't be able to personally confirm Zhao Feng's death. Zhao Feng, Kun Yun, and company sped through the pathways of the crystal maze. Kun Yun, you take the back. Zhao Feng said directly. Kun Yun really wanted to curse at Zhao Feng, but he could only do as asked. Of the 4 present, he was the only one that could block the attacks from the demigod behind them. Kun Yun also found that Zhao Feng and company were becoming stronger very quickly. If the 4 of them teamed up, they might be able to block Demigod Ferocity, but if any one of the other 3 died, the situation would turn nasty. Therefore, Kun Yun had to take the back in order for this to not happen. Sky Ferocity Blast. Mystic light sacred power that contained a wisp of divine power surged from Demigod Ferocity's body. Boom. The image of a dark brown elephant appeared around him. The giant elephant roared and unleashed a blast that passed through the mental and physical dimensions. Boom. 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 The terrifying blast left behind a line of cracks on the cramped crystal paths. Sky Sealing 18 Palms. Kun Yun roared as he completely unleashed his bloodline power. Who? Golden light flashed around his body. His soul and demigod intent merged together as he unleashed 18 golden palms that thrust toward the wave of destruction. Fucking Kun Yun. Demigod Ferocity couldn't help but curse as he felt the power of his attack start to weaken. Kun Yun would use this profound technique every time to weaken the attack before using his powerful body, enchant, and defensive secret techniques to block the attack head-on. If that wasn't the case, Kun Yun would have been killed long ago. Boom. Kun Yun managed to take Demigod Ferocity's attack head-on after it was weakened by his Sky Sealing Palm and the little worlds of Zhao Feng and company. Little Thieving Cat. Zhao Feng started to communicate with the little thieving cat that was hidden in the misty spatial world. Zhao Feng had seen how strong the short black blade was. It could easily slice through the crystals that even demigods couldn't destroy. Thus, it definitely had the power to kill a demigod. The little thieving cat immediately waved its paws and shook its head. The little thieving cat signaled that it had used up too much energy and couldn't use the power of the short black blade. At the same time, it also rejected handing over the short black blade. Zhao Feng felt helpless, but according to his inspections, The little thieving cat was indeed feeling weak. It didn't seem as if it was lying to him. Wang tilde boom. Boom. While the attacks from Demigod Ferocity were blocked, Demigod Ferocity soon managed to catch up since he was much faster than them. "Let's attack together and force him back," Zhao Feng immediately said. "Attack a demigod?" The hearts of Nan Gongsheng and Zhao Yufei slightly shook, and they felt excited. Sky trembling fist. Kun Yun laughed as he activated his physical strength bloodline. He condensed limitless power into his fists and punched out. A ball of blazing golden light that radiated a heaven-shaking force shot toward Demigod Ferocity. Evil Demon Chaotic Sky. Spiritual Glory Purple Light. Nan Gongsheng and Zhao Yufei also used their most powerful skills. Sky-destroying Sacred Lightning Palm. Zhao Feng merged the power of his little world of wind lightning and his physical force lightning domain into his palms and unleashed a bolt of materialized scarlet golden lightning. Zhao Feng condensed this attack to the maximum so that it wouldn't hit the walls. "You dare to fight back?" Demigod Ferocity's expression froze. Whoosh! A giant tattered dark red axe appeared in Demigod Ferocity's hand. Although tattered, it gave off a fierce aura. Sky Ferocity slash. Demigod Ferocity was slightly angry as he slashed out with the weapon in his hand. Arcs of red light instantly crushed the attacks coming at him. He originally thought that he could easily kill Zhao Feng, who was only at the early stages of the Mystic Light Realm, but Zhao Feng had two peers with him, and the strength of the trio had exceeded his expectations. Adding on Kun Yun, they were indeed slightly troublesome. Chapter 1093, Head of the God Corpse. Demigod Ferocity held his tattered axe and crushed his opponent's attacks. His giant axe was a substandard god weapon, but it was damaged and not as strong as it could have been. However, even though this was the case, the power of this giant dark red axe surpassed heaven-grade weapons. Sky Ceiling 18 Palms. Kun Yun used this technique again using this chance. Whoosh! Whoosh! Golden light flashed around his body as he unleashed the demigod intent within his body and thrust out 18 golden palm phantoms around Demigod Ferocity. Although Kun Yun's technique was unable to actually threaten Demigod Ferocity, it could restrict him. Su. Zhao Feng, Kun Yun, and company used this chance to fly away. In order to increase their speed, Zhao Feng summoned Sacred Lord Myriad Forms. Myriad Forms World of Wind Lightning. Sacred Lord Myriad Form's eyes instantly changed the environment and supplied Zhao Feng with endless power of pure wind lightning. Hu tilde. Zhao Feng's scarlet wings of lightning flashed with an even brighter light as his speed instantly doubled, and he escaped with Nan Gongsheng and Zhao Yufei. Kun Yun's intent was extremely strong, so he wasn't any slower than Zhao Feng. So that's how it is. You managed to control Sacred Lord Myriad Forms. Kun Yun could tell that Zhao Feng had used the Dark Heart Seal to control Sacred Lord Myriad Forms. After all, he had once been similarly controlled by Zhao Feng. The Elephant Men race definitely placed a lot of importance on Sacred Lord Myriad Form's talent and bloodline. The reason why Demigod Ferocity was chasing after Zhao Feng was to save Sacred Lord Myriad Forms. "How dare you use Myriad Forms?" Demigod Ferocity roared in anger when he saw this, causing the crystal walls nearby to shake. Divine Light Speed. Demigod Ferocity waved his hands, and wisps of divine power surrounded his body. Whoosh! Demigod Ferocity ignored all resistance after being covered by the divine light. He was like a beam of light as he quickly moved through the crystal maze. Sky Ceiling 18 Palms. Kun Yun unleashed a bunch of half-transparent golden palms once more, but this time, they weren't very effective when they landed against Demigod Ferocity. Kun Yun, die! Demigod Ferocity raised the ancient tattered axe in his hand and channeled the surge of mystic light, sacred power and divine power into it as he slashed out a beam of dark red light. Boom! A hole appeared in the crystal ceiling. The nearby crystal walls also shook as the beam of dark red light appeared before the group. Not good. Demigod Ferocity's attacking with full power now. Zhao Feng felt a terrifying force that could destroy heaven and earth even before Demigod Ferocity's attack arrived. A stinging sensation washed over his body. Demigod Ferocity's attack contained a large amount of divine power. The dark red axe in his hands was also unique. Old undead, one day I'll recover to the demigod rank. Kun Yun also felt a life or death danger. Wang tilde. A golden light appeared from Kun Yun's body and merged into an old gray wrist guard on his left arm. Chaos Sky Protection. Kun Yun immediately stood forward as the wrist guard on his left arm released a glow of gold and white light. Whoosh! 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 A widened gold whirlpool slowly appeared around Kun Yun's body. It blinked with countless talismans and repulsed all the nearby power away. Bam! Demigod Ferocity's attack created a heavy thud as it landed on the gold and white barrier around Kun Yun. Wang tilde Shua. The gold and white barrier around Kun Yun started to quickly spin and direct the enormous energy from Demigod Ferocity's power away. However, Demigod Ferocity's attack was very powerful. The gold and white light rotating around Kun Yun started to slow down, as if it was about to stop moving. Substandard God Item. Demigod Ferocity stared at Kun Yun's wrist guard, and greed flashed through his eyes. Although it was just a substandard God item, only divine power could unleash its full potential. Kun Yun was still just a sacred king, so he couldn't use any divine power unless it was an emergency. Sky Ferocity Slash. Demigod Ferocity unleashed a dark red wave once again. He really wanted Kun Yun's substandard God item. At this moment, Nan Gongsheng appeared behind Kun Yun while holding a green bronze shield with a beast carved on it. Nan Gongsheng circulated a wisp of his evil power into the golden pawn shield. Wang tilde boom. Roars sounded from the green bronze shield as the head of a beast formed and enveloped the gold and white light around Kun Yun. Boom. Demigod Ferocity's attack was weakened by Nan Gongsheng's defensive substandard God item, then completely blocked by Kun Yun's wrist guard. Another substandard God item. Demigod Ferocity's heart shook, and he was stunned. He was a demigod and only had one tattered substandard God weapon, but the Sacred King and late-stage Sacred Lord in front of him each took out a defensive substandard God item. It was reasonable for two substandard God items to stop his attack. You won't be able to escape even if you have substandard God items. Demigod Ferocity was entering a frenzy. As long as he was able to kill these two, he would be able to obtain two substandard God items. Only divine power could fully unleash the potential of substandard God items. The divine power that Nan Gongsheng and Kun Yun could use was limited, so they obviously couldn't use their substandard God items forever. Thus, even if they had substandard God items, all they could do was struggle a bit longer. However, at this moment, a piercing light passed through Demigod Ferocity's body and made his soul shake. What? Demigod Ferocity's expression changed slightly as he looked behind Nan Gongsheng and Kun Yun at Zhao Feng. Bang tilde whoosh. A giant dark golden arrow that seemed able to pierce through everything shot toward him. Kun Yun and Nan Gongsheng managed to avoid the replica god-slaying arrow's attack since Zhao Feng warned them beforehand. Boom. The replica god-slaying arrow landed perfectly on Demigod Ferocity's body and unleashed a terrifying storm of destruction and god tribulation lightning. Go! Zhao Feng roared. He didn't expect the replica god-slaying arrow to do much damage to Demigod Ferocity. Zhao Feng, I didn't expect you to have such a hidden card. Kun Yun smiled and said. One had to know that Zhao Feng was only at the early stages of the mystic light realm, but the power of that arrow was enough to kill late-stage sacred lords and heavily injure sacred kings. Such a hidden card was a terrifying killing move for normal early-stage sacred lords. Zhao Feng didn't say anything. He just used the lightning wings flying technique as he swept up Nan Gongsheng and Zhao Yufei and ran away. In reality, Zhao Feng could have used a real god-slaying arrow or the misty spatial world to escape from Demigod Ferocity. However, the god-slaying arrow was Zhao Feng's biggest killing card, so he wouldn't use it until the last moment. As for the misty spatial world, using it would mean returning to the entrance, wasting a lot of time. Right now, we're heading toward the head of the god corpse. Many humans and non-humans should be gathered there. At that point, Demigod Ferocity shouldn't dare to do anything to us. Zhao Feng told the others his plan. Kun Yun had also sensed that the power in certain parts of the god corpse was slowly moving toward the direction of the head. However, there was still a long distance from here to the head of the god corpse. We can ask human demigods for help if we see any on the way. Zhao Feng continued. Although he wasn't related to any of the demigods in the Great Gon Lord dynasty, they were all humans and wouldn't want to see Zhao Feng and company being chased around by a non-human demigod. A faint ripple of gold covered Zhao Feng's left eye as he scanned the walls around him. Now that the power within these crystal walls was weakening, Zhao Feng could obviously see through more walls. However, Zhao Feng still didn't find any powerful human demigods. He found several human groups, but none of them would have the courage to help him fight against a non-human demigod. Zhao Feng chose routes that avoided as many non-human experts as possible. Boom. A terrifying pressure appeared behind them once again and quickly closed in on Zhao Feng and company. At the same time, in another part of the god corpse, shocking intent radiated from an elder in gray as black lines appeared on his demise. Next to him were several dozen people in black robes. These black-robed people all had powerful auras. There were even 2 sacred kings. A blood crystal Yao spirit glittered with a golden red light and it had red veins. It stood in front of the several dozen black-robed people. The blood crystal Yao spirit held the shining gold and white pearl that contained profound golden talismans within it. You want this substandard god item? A beam of gold and white light shot out from the blood crystal Yao spirit's gold and white pearl toward the group of black-robed people. In an instant, all the black-robed people were shattered by the gold and white light that radiated a divine aura. However, the next moment, these shattered black-robed people started to reform. The left eye of the gray-robed elder suddenly twitched as if it sensed something. Zhao Feng? Don't die too early. The elder in gray laughed as he looked at the giant blood crystal Yao spirit in front of him. Elsewhere, within a crystal cave near the head of the god corpse, there was a crystalline red lake. Yao fish and monsters made of crystalline red water swam within the lake. Yao fish, die. 5 figures with cold and scary auras stood around the transparent crystalline red Yao fish. Boom. The 5 demonic Dao experts surrounded the Yao fish and unleashed devastating demonic Dao attacks. Wu tilde. The crystalline red Yao fish screamed in sadness and released a ripple of soul power that made one's heart shake. It also caused the souls of the demonic Dao experts nearby to tremble. Move aside. An elder radiating demonic flame said coldly behind the 5. Grand Elder. Elder Yuhai. The 5 demonic Dao experts immediately retreated. 9 Darkness demonic light. Demigod Yuhai snickered coldly and unleashed a beam of condensed pitch-black divine power. This beam of black light brought a terrifying pressure alongside it and pierced through space itself as it skewered the Yao fish. The hearts of the 5 demonic Dao experts turned cold as they saw the blood crystal Yao fish sink back into the lake. They respectfully looked at Demigod Yuhai. Let's head toward the head of the god corpse. Demigod Yuhai's eyes glittered with a cold light. It's unfortunate that I didn't get to see Zhao Feng. I hope that he'll manage to arrive at the head of the god corpse alive. Demigod Yuhai revealed a deadly smile. Chapter 1094, Teaming Up. Zhao Feng, Kun Yun, and company sped through a crystal pathway in the god corpse. The pressure from demigod ferocity slowly crushed over from behind. Zhao Feng, he's catching up. Kun Yun said in a testing tone. Even if he and Nan Gongsheng were able to block demigod ferocity's attacks, they couldn't use much divine power, so it wouldn't last very long. Being on the defensive the entire time was pointless. As long as demigod ferocity kept chasing after them, they would eventually be killed. Zhao Feng had a grim expression. If this continued, he would have to use a real god-slaying arrow, but even if he did, it would only injure demigod ferocity at most. That human group. Zhao Feng's gaze passed through several dozen crystal walls and noticed a group. Zhao Feng didn't really have any connections with the sacred kings of the Great Gon Lord dynasty, and normal sacred king groups wouldn't dare to help Zhao Feng fight a non-human demigod anyway. However, the leader of this group was Grand Elder Darkscreen of Black Screen Corner. Zhao Feng felt like Sacred King Darkscreen would likely help him, and Sacred King Darkscreen was one of the stronger sacred kings like Sacred King Feather Spirit. Go. Zhao Feng changed the group's route slightly. Grand Elder, the superpowers of both Lord dynasties have gathered at the head of the god corpse. We probably won't be able to get much of a share. An elder from Black Screen Corner's group said. There's nothing absolute in the world. Sacred King Darkscreen said. Part of the energy in the god corpse was heading toward the head, so there was definitely some sort of secret involved. If Black Screen Corner missed the fortune there, it would be Sacred King Darkscreen's fault. Besides, Black Screen Corner was a neutral power. They hadn't offended any forces, so it would be very easy for them to team up with other forces. Right at this moment, Sacred King Darkscreen suddenly sensed something and turned around. Zhao Feng? Sacred King Darkscreen's divine sense passed through the crystal walls and saw Zhao Feng's figure. Little friend Zhao is also planning on heading to the head of the god corpse? Sacred King Darkscreen asked playfully. He was surprised that Zhao Feng managed to survive till now after entering the God Corpse, but Zhao Feng still wanted to go to the head of the God Corpse? He really didn't know the word death, did he? Kun Yun. Sacred King Darkscreen's expression changed when he saw the golden figure behind Zhao Feng. Black Screen Corner specialized in assassinations and intel, so they obviously knew a lot about Kun Yun's history and background. Black Screen Corner already guessed that Zhao Feng and Kun Yun were deeply related, but he didn't expect them to be together in the God Corpse. Senior Darkscreen, please help me. Zhao Feng said loudly before he arrived. As long as it's within my ability, I will obviously help you. Sacred King Darkscreen stroked his beard. No matter what, Zhao Feng had given him the extremely precious purifying blood sacred spirit pills. Zhao Feng's group also included an expert like Kun Yun, which meant that the overall strength of Zhao Feng's group was roughly equal to his, so they could work together. As soon as Sacred King Darkscreen finished saying that, Sacred King Darkscreen's group felt a destructive pressure slowly descend. Senior Darkscreen, please help us deal with this non-human demigod. Zhao Feng arrived next to Sacred King Darkscreen and completed his sentence. A loud explosion then sounded as demigod ferocity appeared before them. His pressure was like a mountain that crushed down on everyone, and they were unable to breathe properly. Some of the weaker sacred lords in Sacred King Darkscreen's group couldn't even stand. Demigod ferocity. A sacred lord from Sacred King Darkscreen's group exclaimed as he fell to the ground. Even Sacred King Darkscreen was dazed and in utter shock. He was shocked that Zhao Feng and company were still alive after being chased by a demigod. Even if Zhao Feng's group included Kun Yun, they shouldn't have been to defend against a demigod. I thought that you might have found some strong helpers, but they're just a bunch of ants. Demigod ferocity looked at Black Screen Corner's group in disdain. One of the sacred lords in the group couldn't even block his intent. Only Sacred King Darkscreen somewhat entered his eyes. Sacred King Darkscreen's expression froze when he heard this and spoke in a grim tone. What plan do you have? Zhao Feng and company had been able to escape to here even after being chased by a demigod. However, it would be pointless unless Zhao Feng and company had a plan to block this non-human demigod. Kun Yun used to be a demigod and had now recovered to the Sacred King rank, so his true power was definitely very great. Sacred King Darkscreen also wanted to try fighting a demigod. Of course I have a plan. Zhao Feng smiled faintly and took out some black array flags. The evil Deathian spirit array of 9 Darkness Palace. Sacred King Darkscreen was extremely knowledgeable and recognized the history of Zhao Feng's array flags. Whoosh! 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 Zhao Feng threw over 3 of the flags to Sacred King Darkscreen, Nan Gongsheng, and Zhao Yufei. This evil Deathian spirit array was the one used by the sacred lords of 9 Darkness Palace when they tried to kill Zhao Feng a while back, but those 4 sacred lords that tried to kill Zhao Feng were killed instead. Thus, their array obviously became Zhao Feng's. All of you, retreat. Sacred King Darkscreen immediately ordered the Black Screen Corner group. Normal sacred lords were useless in front of a demigod. Sue. 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 The other members of Black Screen Corner immediately retreated several miles after hearing what their Grand Elder said. Zhao Feng and company then circulated their mystic light sacred power and activated the array flags. Who tilde? The 4 black array flags then stood in the air and burned with a black ghost Dao power. Then, cries from ghosts and monsters that could make one's hair stand on end started to appear. In an instant, black light shot into the sky as if the array flags were 4 giant poles that reached the heavens. Wang tilde. A black and blood-colored light covered everything within several miles as a black flaming barrier formed around Zhao Feng, Sacred King Darkscreen, and company. Kun Yun, you're responsible for stopping the demigod. We'll support you. Zhao Feng immediately said. Only Kun Yun and Sacred King Darkscreen were actually able to stop demigod ferocity, and Kun Yun was stronger than Sacred King Darkscreen. Okay. Kun Yun immediately agreed. He didn't think that Zhao Feng would have such a profound array. The array could combine the powers of these 4 people together. Killing normal sacred kings would be extremely easy. With such a terrifying array, it wasn't impossible for Kun Yun to face demigod ferocity head-on. Senior Darkscreen, you're going to be the primary controller of this evil Deathian spirit array. Zhao Feng told Sacred King Darkscreen. The evil Deathian spirit array was an evil demonic Dao array. Sacred King Darkscreen would be able to utilize the most power from it. Activate the killing array. Zhao Feng said. One would immediately know how to use the array as long as they merged their consciousness into it. They all used special techniques and slammed their palms onto the burning black array flags. Whoosh! 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 Countless monsters with gruesome expressions extended their ghastly white claws from the black and blood-colored dimension of hell. These monsters slowly merged and formed a large skeletal ghost monster that covered most of the array. You want to stop me with this shitty array? Demigod Ferocity revealed a disdainful expression as he released a wave of dark red power. Sky Sealing Palm. Kun Yun immediately took action and weakened Demigod Ferocity's attack. The group of four then circulated their mystic light sacred power in a frenzy. The aura of ghosts surged within the array as the skeletal ghost monster reached out with its ghastly white claws to block the dark red blast. Wang tilde boom. The entire array shook as all the power within it surged into the sky. The group of four was actually able to block Demigod Ferocity's attack. Although they managed to stop Demigod Ferocity's attack last time as well, it was only because of their substandard god items. The evil Deathian Spirit Array is known for its stalling abilities, but it can also turn into a killing array. Meanwhile, the ones holding the array flags will be protected by the entire array. Sacred King Darkscreen had heard of this 9 Darkness Palace array before. Humph, if you were missing even one person, that array would be useless. Demigod Ferocity became angry after seeing his attack stopped. Sky Ferocity Slash. This time, Demigod Ferocity didn't attack the entire array. Instead, he targeted one person. Yu Fei. Zhao Feng could guess who Demigod Ferocity was going to attack before he even did it. Wang tilde boom. Boom. A giant blast of dark red power slashed toward Zhao Yufei with a forceful momentum. Even if Zhao Yufei had the bloodline of the spiritual race and strong defense, even the body of someone from the spiritual race might be completely destroyed by the divine power contained in Demigod Ferocity's attack. Nan Gongsheng, lend me the golden pawn shield. Zhao Feng said directly. Nan Gongsheng hesitated for a moment before giving the golden pawn shield to Zhao Feng. Shoo! Zhao Feng waved his left arm, and Sacred Lord myriad forms appeared in Zhao Feng's position to take over the array flag. Meanwhile, Zhao Feng circulated his wings to the maximum and arrived next to Zhao Yufei while holding the golden pawn shield. A snarling beast head suddenly appeared in the sky. At the same time, the claws of the skeletal ghost monster teamed up with the power of the substandard god item to block Demigod Ferocity's attack. Sky Shaking Punch. Using this chance, Kun Yun activated his physical strength bloodline and used a wisp of divine power as he punched out. A blazing golden ball of light radiated an intent that could shake heaven and earth as it shot toward Demigod Ferocity. Bam! Zhao Feng managed to block Demigod Ferocity's attack with the substandard god item and the power of the evil Deathian Spirit Array. Poof! Zhao Feng spat out a mouthful of fresh blood as pain coursed through his body. Zhao Feng had no divine power, so he was unable to use the true power of substandard god weapons. On the other side, Kun Yun's attack landed on Demigod Ferocity and managed to push the latter back several dozen steps into the crystal walls behind him. Although Kun Yun was only a sacred king, he had high understanding and was able to injure Demigod Ferocity with his divine power. Brother Feng! Zhao Yufei cried out as her eyes became teary. I'm fine. Zhao Feng immediately used the water and wood of wind lightning to heal himself. Great, we managed to injure that old undead. Kun Yun felt extremely smug. His attacks finally managed to injure Demigod Ferocity for the first time. Sacred King Darkscreen had a faint smile. Fighting against a demigod and managing to even injure him was his best battle record so far in his life. The other sacred lords from Black Screen Corner hiding in the back took in cold breaths as their eyes bulged out. In their hearts, demigods were legendary existences, undefeatable. But now, their Grand Elder managed to stall a non-human demigod and even injure him. This was an incredible feat. Chapter 1095, Escape. I'm going to kill all of you. Demigod Ferocity's enraged voice sounded from behind them. Boom. Demigod Ferocity released a dark heavy yellow light. This was the power of his little world projection, and it caused heaven and earth to darken as a heavy and strong force descended. Who tilde? Kun Yun immediately released his little world projection as well, and a golden green light started to spread from his little world as it fought back against Demigod Ferocity's little world. Wang tilde. Zhao Feng immediately activated his perfect Blood Devil Sun bloodline and Sacred Lightning body to block the effect of this terrifying little world projection. Zhao Yufei, Nan Gongsheng, and Sacred Lord Myriad Forms, who were still busy controlling the evil Deathian spirit array, had weaker physical bodies. However, they were protected by the array, so the effect on them wasn't very big. Die. Demigod Ferocity glared at Zhao Feng with furious eyes. He finally understood that Zhao Feng was the critical person in the group since he was the one giving almost all the orders. Sky Ferocity Slash. This time, Demigod Ferocity's attack became even stronger with the help of his little world. Boom. Wang Wang. A dark red wave of light that seemed able to destroy anything and everything crushed toward Zhao Feng. Kun Yun's body trembled slightly when he saw such a devastating blow. Sky Ceiling 18 palms. Kun Yun immediately used his bloodline power and thrust out more than a dozen golden palms. Who? Profound golden palms twisted in the air around Demigod Ferocity's attack, decreasing the speed and power of the dark red wave of light. Brother Feng. Zhao Yufei immediately called out. Even though Zhao Feng had a substandard god shield, he probably wouldn't be able to stop Demigod Ferocity's terrifying attack. The hearts of Sacred King Darkscreen and Nan Gongsheng clenched. However, at this moment, Zhao Feng's voice resounded through everyone's mind, attack Demigod Ferocity at full power. Now get ready. What? Everyone's expressions changed slightly in disbelief. Demigod Ferocity's attack was about to reach Zhao Feng, but he was telling them to use this chance to attack Demigod Ferocity? Could Zhao Feng have some sort of method to stop such a strong blow from a demigod? Who tilde? Zhao Feng raised the golden pawn shield once more as he faced Demigod Ferocity's attack. Wang tilde. A blood-colored crystal pearl appeared in Zhao Feng's hand, and a golden red divine light shot out of it into the golden pawn shield. This blood-colored crystal pearl was the blood god crystal he had obtained from the blood-colored pond when he just entered the god corpse. A moment ago, Zhao Feng suddenly remembered that, even though he didn't have any divine power in his own body, he could use divine power from external objects. Boom. Roars started to sound from the green bronze shield as a large red beast head formed in the air and covered Zhao Feng. This supreme aura that shook heaven and earth was the aura of divine power. How is this possible? Even that brat has divine power? Demigod Ferocity was stunned and felt incredulous. Kun Yun had divine power because he was once a demigod, and Nan Gongsheng had inherited the power of the evil god. While Demigod Ferocity was in shock, Sacred King Darkscreen controlled the evil Yin Death Spirit Array, and the giant skeletal ghost monster attacked Demigod Ferocity. Nan Gongsheng gripped the black array flag and poured a wisp of his evil god divine power into it without hesitation. A blood-colored flower then glowed around the surface of the skeletal ghost monster's body. At the same time, Kun Yun activated his bloodline and punched out with both his fists as he infused the power of his intent. Fists shaking heaven and earth. Kun Yun used one of the killing moves of the sky-shaking fists and released brilliant beams of golden light. These fist lights seemed to merge into one as they all landed near Demigod Ferocity. On the other hand, the giant dark red wave of light landed on the red beast head around Zhao Feng and was about to cut through the red beast head. So strong. Zhao Feng expected this. Even though he used divine power, it wasn't enough to stop Demigod Ferocity's attack. Earth Lightning Sacred Armor. Sacred Lightning Protection. Zhao Feng immediately used his Wind Lightning technique and Sacred Lightning body to utilize two powerful defensive secret techniques. The Earth Lightning Sacred Armor was a skill that came from the 9th level of the Wind Lightning technique. Wang tilde. A dark yellow sacred power appeared around Zhao Feng and instantly formed an armor of wind lightning that gave off a heavy pressure. At the same time, Zhao Feng merged his earth of wind lightning and physical sacred power together, and a golden white barrier of lightning appeared around Zhao Feng. Crack. The dark red wave of light broke through the defense of the golden pawn shield and landed on Zhao Feng's two defensive secret techniques. Boom. Zhao Feng's figure was thrown back 1 mile and slammed heavily into the crystal walls. At the same time, the all-out offense from Kun Yun and the evil Deathian spirit array landed on Demigod Ferocity. Get ready. Sacred King Darkscreen immediately roared out loud. Nan Gongsheng, Zhao Yufei, and Sacred Lord Myriad Forms nodded their heads. Wang. A dangerous aura started to brew in the evil Deathian spirit array. The black skeletal ghost monster in the array accepted the power from the 4 controllers and started to expand. explode. They then threw their array flags at Demigod Ferocity. The entire array covered Demigod Ferocity while the giant skeleton leapt at Demigod Ferocity and exploded. Nangongsheng, Kun Yun, and company had already retreated. Boom. A blast of black light swept out in every direction, and it contained different powers that could destroy heaven and earth. Arg! Demigod Ferocity's scream sounded in everyone's ears from far away. It's not over yet. In the distance, Zhao Feng was covered in blood as he pulled back a bowstring. Wang tilde Z. The power of God Tribulation Lightning exited Zhao Feng's lightning soul body. He also circulated the divine power within the blood god crystal. Bang tilde whoosh. A giant scarlet golden arrow shot through the air toward the center of the explosion, followed by a storm of destruction. Boom. A terrifying storm containing the elements of metal and lightning alongside the aura of divine power caused a second explosion. Run. Everyone started to run after the replica god-slaying arrow was shot. Myriad Forms World of Wind Lightning. Sacred Lord Myriad Forms immediately changed the elements of heaven and earth. Zhao Feng and Sacred Lord Myriad Forms controlled the elements of wind and lightning as they led Nangongsheng, Zhao Yufei, and the Sacred Lords of Black Screen Corner to quickly retreat. Sacred King Dark Screen and Kun Yun were extremely quick. They were even faster than Zhao Feng, who was heavily injured. As long as they managed to escape a certain distance, the resistance of these crystal walls would make it extremely difficult for Demigod Ferocity to find them again. That should be enough for that old undead to deal with. Kun Yun laughed smugly before looking at Zhao Feng solemnly. The reason they could so heavily injure Demigod Ferocity and escape was because of Zhao Feng's hidden cards. As expected of an attack from a demigod, Zhao Feng found that, even though he was using his Wood of Wind Lightning, his injuries were barely recovering. Whoosh! A multicolored liquid appeared in Zhao Feng's hand. Gulu! Gulu! Zhao Feng drank down a bottle of 100 Origin Sacred Honey, and a pure and holy aura instantly spread throughout his body, into his limbs, and finally, into his soul. Wang wang wang! Zhao Feng circulated the Wood of Wind Lightning, increasing the rate of recovery for his injuries. After opening his eyes, Zhao Feng saw that everyone else was staring at him. Senior Zhao, was that the 100 Origin Sacred Honey? A Sacred Lord from Black Screen Corner gulped. One had to know that 100 Origin Sacred Honey increased the chances of breaking through to the Mystic Light Realm, and it was also very beneficial for a Sacred Lord's state of existence, soul, and Mystic Light Sacred Power. However, Zhao Feng used such a precious resource just to heal himself? I admire Senior Zhao's performance just now. Another Sacred Lord from Black Screen Corner said. They originally hated Zhao Feng for trying to drag them down with him, but Zhao Feng actually managed to severely injure a non-human demigod and escape. This changed their attitudes toward Zhao Feng. In a certain cave within the God Corpse, Zhao Feng's group and Sacred King Dark Screen's group started to rest. Almost everyone was exhausted after the battle. Within the misty spatial world, Zhao Feng used the Soul Recovery Divine Technique and Wood of Wind Lightning to recover the injuries to his soul and body. A yellow fruit that was covered in crystal appeared in Zhao Feng's hand. This was a fruit from the vines that the little thieving cat had obtained for Zhao Feng. Let me borrow your weapon, Zhao Feng said to the little thieving cat, who was resting next to him. The crystal on the fruit was extremely tough, and Zhao Feng couldn't destroy it. In reality though, Zhao Feng just wanted to see the short black blade that the little thieving cat had obtained. Meow meow. The little thieving cat was very clever and knew what Zhao Feng really wanted to do, but it still handed over the short black blade. Zhao Feng carefully inspected the blade, which looked extremely normal and had no aura. Wang tilde. Zhao Feng poured his mystic light sacred power into the short black blade but didn't see any reaction. Meow meow. The little thieving cat jumped onto Zhao Feng's shoulder and started to wave its paws around. I can't use it? Divine weapon? Zhao Feng's expression changed dramatically. If it wasn't for the fact that he had seen the little thieving cat cut through the tough crystal so easily, Zhao Feng wouldn't believe what the little thieving cat just said. The normal black blade in Zhao Feng's hands was a legendary divine weapon. One had to know that no true divine weapon had ever appeared in the continent zone before. Ding! Ding! Zhao Feng held the short black blade and tapped around the yellow fruit, causing a layer of crystal to crumble. It's this strong even without being activated? Zhao Feng believed that this was a true divine weapon. I'll give it to you, help me get rid of all the crystal on the fruit. Zhao Feng rolled his eyes at the little thieving cat before throwing the fruit and short black blade to the little thieving cat. Originally, Zhao Feng was very happy that the little thieving cat had helped him obtain a fruit, but now he realized that the little thieving cat had given itself a divine weapon. No matter how precious this fruit was, it definitely wouldn't be as precious as a legendary divine weapon. Meow meow. The little thieving cat was full of smiles as it walked toward Zhao Feng and tried to get on his good side. Who? The little thieving cat reached into its mouth and took out 2 more fruits. Zhao Feng's expression turned to shock as he picked up these 2 fruits. They were indeed fruits from the vines. Zhao Feng stared at the little thieving cat's stomach. He really wanted to dissect the little thieving cat and see if there were any other treasures inside. Meow meow. The little thieving cat seemed to know what Zhao Feng was thinking and immediately started to explain that these 2 fruits were obtained as it was running out at the last moment and that there was definitely only 2 of them.